to stay or be prepared to walk and catch the train.
Or wait for the train. Because the oh my goodness. Like, okay, I hate to be stereotypical, but you know how people say don't drink with white people? Like, white people get super drunk.
Right.
Like, white boy wasted. Let me tell you this. White boys have nothing on the Japanese. Nothing. Like, no. It's a completely different thing. Like, these people, I kid you not, you can get on the train at like 10 o'clock in the morning. There's going to be a drunk man on that train. Like, at least one.
Oh, and they love whiskey.
They love whiskey.
I mean, you can find, there's a whiskey aisle in the store that's kind of like Best Buy. They were selling computers around the corner, and there was a whiskey section in an electronics store. There's a whiskey section inside 7-Eleven. You can buy a gallon of Jim Beam for like 3,500 yen. Which,
if that much.
I know, which ends up being like, I don't know, maybe
28.
Yeah, $28 US. So, I mean, they love whiskey. Next to the whiskey is their highball, which is, I mean, just whiskey and club soda. Yeah. And that is an absolute favorite. But when I say they go in, they go in.
Like, all the way in. Like, you will, if you walk outside at, like, the time the train starts running again, which is like 5:30 or something, you will see these people on the ground. Like, you would think they're homeless, but they're still in their business suits and have their briefcase from the day before because they stayed out and drank all night. But I will say, even though they do drink a lot, it's, in a way, it's a little bit more safe because they can't drive. Like, you know, it's forbidden. Drinking and driving here is like one of the worst absolute things you can do. So that did take some getting used to, the one drink limit. So what else do you dislike about Japan?
So driving here in Japan is different because you drive on the left side of the road. The roads are narrow and they don't have, some of them don't have center lines, so you have to learn how to average. But driving here in Japan, you have to have 360 vision of your car. And what I mean by that is you have to know what's on the side of you, what's behind you, what's in front of you, and you're accountable for it all, which isn't a problem. But because it feels so safe and everyone is so courteous and has the integrity, the pedestrians here feel invincible and they move with reckless abandon. You could be driving down the street, you know, doing 40 kilometers, and they will walk out in front of the car, never look right, never look left. They just walk.
They just walk out there. They don't care about their life.
Because they know that they have the right of way, and you're going to slow down. In their mind, this person's going to wait on me. And I can't say that, but that's the impression that you get as a driver. And you're looking at this person as like, I could have hurt you. I really could have hurt you. Like, why would you have jumped out there like that? You could be, there could be standstill traffic going in one direction, and they'll come running from between cars.
Right, just out of nowhere.
But it's one of those things where, you know, like in the States, the pedestrian has the right of way at all times. But the one thing that I can say is that almost all the intersections are equipped with crosswalk and cross lights. They're just a few brave souls that choose not to use those from time to time, and that cause and pose the problem.
But even though the thing about it is, it's so many pedestrians.
Yes.
It's so many of them. And then, but the one good thing I do like, when they do have the pedestrian lights, people usually do not move until they get the green light.
Right.
Like, no matter if no cars are coming, like, they don't jaywalk. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. They don't really jaywalk here. It's not a thing just because culturally and custom wise they don't do it. Like, people look at you really weird if you jaywalk. because they have the pedestrian lights, they have the crosswalks and stuff like that. But it's really weird when you see someone jaywalk here. It's strange.
Very.
Very. So for me, the things that I dislike, oh my goodness, I dislike parking. Parking is so crazy here. Like, either it's really expensive to park somewhere, it's very limited parking, or it's just no parking at all. Like, none. So you have to take the train to some places. But like, even our mansion, quote unquote, or apartment where we live, I only get one parking space. And so we have 2 cars. And when we went to look for another parking space, the parking lot where my car is parked right beside our building is full. There's no parking spaces there. So the next closest open lot is a 10-minute walk away from here. Like, that, to me, that's crazy. Like, the next open lot is a 10-minute walk away. Is that not crazy?
Yeah, that's a little crazy. And you get used to walking, so it doesn't seem like it's that bad of a walk. But the weathermen are horrible over here. The weather forecasts are never what it's supposed to be. And I realized that when I saw everybody walking around with book bags, or some kind of bag, it wasn't because, they actually were carrying books or they're a student. No, you just have to be prepared at all times for whatever weather may come. So you have to have your umbrella, your rain jacket. You may need to have a hoodie or something like that. I say that to say this: you never know what the weather is going to be like, and that 10-minute walk could turn into the most miserable thing ever, because on a day that you thought it was going to be sunny, it could be typhoon raining. Typhoons are like hurricanes, and I mean, we've had them almost every other week during this season. And so, I mean, torrential rains nonstop for 2 to 3 days. So it's one of those things where you just need to look out the window. But yeah, it will make that 10-minute walk to a parking space just miserable.
Yeah.
And of course, being the gentleman that I am, my wife would get the closer parking space, and I would be the one taking the walk. So
that is very true. That's 100% true. You're strong. You can do it. So for me, the other thing that I strongly dislike, which I unfortunately had experience with, because we are considered American ambassadors, whenever there's any collision or accident between an American citizen and a Japanese local, we have to take fault in it simply for existing at that time. Because it's like, their idea is that if we weren't here, the accident wouldn't have happened, which is some total BS to me. So I was hit. I was not in an accident. I don't consider it an accident because I didn't do anything. The lady hit me. But when it all boiled down to it, they did all this extra stuff, hired a third-party investigator company. Like, they were real extra with it. But anyways, I ended up having to take 10% fault. So it was 90% her fault and 10% my fault, just because I existed at that time and she hit me. And if I wasn't there, it wouldn't have happened. So I don't really like that, because it makes me feel like I'm being treated differently because I'm a foreigner. And I don't like it. It's not cool. It's not cool at all. Okay, so moving right along, we are going to answer some questions that I get often about Japan, moving to Japan. And one of the biggest questions is, how did we end up in Japan anyways? Like, how do we just up and move to Japan? So we didn't just one day wake up and decide, oh, we're going to move to Japan. There was a process behind it. And I would honestly really say that what got us here was discontent, really, if you think about the root of it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because the whole reason why I was looking for another career track is because I was discontent and unhappy with my previous employer. So then I started applying to other jobs, and I worked at a call center previously, and I actually loved the company. It was the nature of the job that just kind of shelf life for call center reps is like 3 years, and I was there for 2. But I was not very content with it. And so I was like, okay, I went to school for 4 years to be a teacher, and then I didn't want to be a teacher. Now I'm working at this call center, which was a great job, but I wasn't fulfilled. I didn't have any gratification. Like, I felt like I was a robot, basically. And so I was like, let me try teaching. And so I went online, filled out an application, and I actually went to usajobs.gov to fill out the application. And I ended up getting a part-time teaching job. And I absolutely fell in love with it. Fell in love, but there was that money issue thing. So I couldn't quit my full-time job to work just part-time. So I did both of them for a couple months. How long? Like 3 months?
Yeah.
So about 3 months I did it. And it was a lot. It was a huge sacrifice. But I was willing to do it because I end up loving to teach. And so by taking that part-time job, it really put my foot in the door for the job that I currently have. And the way it works is this. Once I got that part-time job, in the application system that's associated with it, you can select all these locations that you want to be considered for overseas. So I could have picked Korea, Guam, Puerto Rico, where else? Even though Puerto Rico is still considered, U.S. territory, but it was somewhere different. So I select all these places, and then I got nervous, and I was like, oh man, I don't want to do any of these things. So I went back in and thought I deselected everything, but apparently I left Pacific checked. And I end up being put on a referral list. And I saw the email saying that I was on a referral list, but that doesn't really necessarily mean anything. It means you went from a bigger pool of people to a smaller pool of people. And so I didn't pay any attention to it until I got an email about an interview. And I was like, oh, snap. This is kind of serious.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know. Like, oh, wow, okay, interview. And at this point, I paid no attention to the referral list part, so I didn't know where the school was at. And I was like, oh, wow, this school wants me to interview. Let me see where it's at. And I was like, wait, this school is in Japan? No freaking way. No way. And so I took the interview, and I only took the interview for interview experience. Like, in my mind, I was like, I'm not taking this job in Japan. So I got the interview, and it ended up being like the best interview of my life. It was a really, really good interview. And afterwards, I just really asked myself, like, you can follow your dream, follow your passion, and work on the other side of the world. Or you can stay in your comfort zone where you're at and be miserable. So, I mean, obviously I picked follow my heart, right? Which was really hard to do because people have always told me, follow your heart and the money would come. Which is hard to do when bills are looking you in your face. It's like,
amen.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, follow your heart, and then your heart have you in Timbuktu rubbing sticks together or something. And now you on the side of the road. But it was a hard concept for me to grasp. But took the leap of faith, and that's how we ended up in Japan.
Yep. And the crazy part about it, it was the end of August when you found out that you actually got it. And I mean, in a matter of weeks.
Yeah, I found out. Matter of fact, I think it was August 18th. And I was in Japan by September 24th.
And you got to think, at this point in time, she didn't have a passport.
Didn't even have a passport.
I mean, when I say they expedited, and I mean, it was really a blessing to be like, okay, they wanted her, they needed her, and the way that they moved on it showed that. because she had her passport within like